The Titans play the Patriots this weekend. Will Levis make his return? Do the Titans want to win this game? Do the Titans fans want them to win this game? We're going to talk about it all. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Oh, welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver, and with me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, I don't know at what point we're going to stop doing like Week X preview episodes, but because this game is so important for draft positioning, I think we should maybe talk about it a little bit. What's going on?
I don't know what you're talking about. It's early November, and the Titans and Patriots are playing what's essentially a playoff game here, right? It's like the Tom Brady Patriots, the Steve McNair Titans. Remember that playoff game back in the early 2000s?
Oh, yeah.
Bennett dropped it on fourth down. This game's giving off that kind of vibes. It's going to be a hell of a barn burner.
Don't remind us of the Drew Bennett play. Justin, Will Levis practiced in a limited capacity on Wednesday. We're recording this Thursday morning before the injury report for today comes out. But it seems like he's tracking towards making his return. There were some videos floating around on the timeline of him throwing, warm-ups and stuff in practice, individual drills, that kind of thing. Doesn't look to be affected anymore by the shoulder injury that kept him out for a couple of games here. What do you expect? Is Will Levis making his return? And if so, how big of a game is this for the Titans' second-year signal caller?
Yeah, I'm anticipating that he's going to play. I think at this point, I'd be a little surprised if he didn't. Remember, we were surprised when he sat the Buffalo game, right? Where it was like, oh, the shoulder, is it hurt? Is it not hurt? And now he's had 2 extra weeks to heal. So I would assume that's enough time. You know, going into this game, I know Titans fans are kind of sick and tired of the Will Levis discussion, but put yourself in Rand Carthon's chair. Put yourself in Brian Callahan's chair. Heck, put yourself in Will Levis's chair. You know, pretend you're not a fan that doesn't care about this team this year and doesn't care about this game. That's probably what you are for the most part. But to those guys, it really matters. And what I mean by that is I wrote an article coming out on Titan Sized on Friday. It's like, to those people who are paid to make those decisions, and for a guy who's got a lot on the line in Will Levis, this really signals his last-ditch opportunity to prove that he could be a franchise quarterback. Now, call me crazy, but again, put yourself in his chair. There are 9 games left in this season. There's more than half of the season left. That sounds crazy because you already don't care. They're 1-6. The season's over. There's more than half of this season left, right? If he goes out there and balls out for these next 9 games, now, I'm not saying I think that's going to happen or that I expect it to happen, but if he does, there's still a chance here that the Titans think, okay, this guy could be our quarterback and we could build around him. Like, I know that's crazy talk based on what we've seen, but he's got to operate from that mindset, right? Like how much he's got riding on this, how much the Titans, the best case scenario for the Titans is that Will Levis is a franchise quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easier to have him than it is to go find him, right? Like, there's no doubt about that. So with 9 games left, all he could ask for is an opportunity. And this is an opportunity for him to say, hey, look, if he plays well, those 7 games will be a foot in his story, right? The first, and he didn't even play all 7, right? They're 1-6. So what? Those first 4.5? Because I think that's what he's played, right? Is 4.5 games of the first 7. So it's like he's got a chance here to, yes, they're trending towards saying there's no way in hell this guy's our franchise quarterback, but he's got a chance here to say, hey, I've got 9 games. Let me prove you wrong.
Yeah, exactly. The book is not closed completely yet. Even if we're ready to hit print and publish the thing, it's not over yet. We still have, like you said, 9 games to go here. And in this game in particular, there really are no excuses. Like, it's time to put up or shut up for Will Levis. And what I mean by the no excuses thing is right now the offensive line has really turned things around. We talked about this a little bit on our last pod, but we can go a little deeper on this one. The past 5 weeks, so since week 4, the Titans are tied for allowing the fewest sacks in the entire NFL with the Cardinals. The Titans have allowed 5 sacks in their last 4 games. Now, the teams that they're tied for and close to on this list have played an extra game. The Titans had their bye. But 5 sacks in 4 games is a huge improvement from where they were early in the season. That's an average of 1.3 per game that they're allowing right now. So the offensive line is starting to come together. And, they played the Lions without Aiden Hutchinson. They've played some teams that don't have a great pass rush, but the Patriots have one of the worst pass rushes in the entire NFL. Remember, they traded Matthew Judon back before the season started. And if you look at where they're at in terms of getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, they are bottom 5 in the league in pressure rate. When it comes to defense overall, they are bottom 7 in EPA per play allowed. They are bottom 6 in EPA per pass allowed. They are 14th worst in EPA per rush allowed. But the pass defense is really, really bad for this Patriots team. And the pass rush, too. And they do have some talented players, like Christian Gonzalez is a great cornerback building block that they have on that team, and he'll probably be shadowing Calvin Ridley in this game. So it's going to be on Brian Callahan to scheme up some stuff that gets Ridley away from Christian Gonzalez. But overall, when you look at where this team is now compared to when the last time Will Levis played, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is gone. A lot of pieces on defense are going to be out in this game, guys that they've come to count on. The right tackle position, still a little bit in flux, going to look different from the last time Will Levis played. But overall, the offensive line is playing better. The offense moved the ball, the best clip they have all season last week against the Lions, over 400 yards of offense. If Mason Rudolph can put up over 400 yards of offense, Will Levis, against one of the worst defenses in the league, better be able to move the ball in this game and, most of all, avoid the catastrophic turnovers. So I agree with you. I think this is sort of not this week necessarily, but this next stretch of games is his last chance to cement himself as the Titans franchise quarterback, because if he plays poorly again in this one against a bad defense and continues to play poorly and continues to make boneheaded mistakes, I don't know if you let him play out all the way to week 18. They probably do just because, but there's a bigger chance they pull the plug sooner if he continues to stink it up over these next few weeks. So this really is his last chance.
I don't even know. It's funny. You said cement himself. I don't even know if he could cement himself, but all he can do is say, give me a fighting chance for 2025, right? Like, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Is give me a fighting chance. A couple of thoughts on the O-line stat you said. There are a lot of caveats there, for sure. One of them, they didn't play a game, right? As you said, throughout that stretch, they had a bye. A couple others, Detroit without Aiden Hutchinson. Miami is included in that stretch, one of the worst pass rushing units in the NFL as well. They're dealing with a ton of injuries up front, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. I also like how you said the right tackle spot's a little bit in flux. They've played 4 players there in the last 4 games. It's the definition of a revolving door, and none of those decisions were made due to injury. They've played 4 different players there because they're all bad. So they're trying to figure that out. But with all that said, I do think, and I said it last week, I think I said it the week before too, this offensive line is getting better, and I think we're finally seeing the payoff of back-to-back years with a first-round pick, a $50 million center in free agency. I really think most of these spots have been fixed up front, right? I think the one question, the long-term question, is right tackle, and it's one they're going to have to address in the offseason. But as I've been saying, those other 4 spots, right guard included, Dylan Raditz, I think has been, league average to legitimate good.
Yeah.
Since at least week 4 onward, after those couple struggles. One thing I'll be watching for is, throughout that stretch, giving up just a couple sacks, Mason Rudolph, the starting quarterback, for that stretch, I think he's helped them a little bit. A bit of a quicker decision maker. I think a little bit better in the pocket, not drifting into pressure. Does that change with Will Levis coming back in the lineup? We saw early on he had a tendency to hold on to the ball too long, to drift into pressure, to struggle with decision making and going through progression. So do those offensive line numbers get worse when Levis returns under center? And if so, it'll be another answer to the question of whether or not he's the quarterback or not.
Yeah, and I've said all along, I think that's one of his biggest weaknesses. The other one being health and, a durability. Like we talked about it before the season, one of the biggest things that could derail his season is injury, because he's missed time basically every year dating back to his sophomore year of college, and he missed time again this year already. We'll see if he can stay healthy the rest of the way. But to your point about Mason Rudolph helping the offensive line, the Titans are still second in the NFL in pressure rate allowed at 43.1%. Now that's come down a bit because it was up at 50%, I think, through 3 weeks in the season. So it is coming down, but it's still not even close to league average. And the idea that Mason Rudolph is getting pressured but getting rid of the ball is something that Will Levis also will need to do, because he's still going to get pressured on occasion. Like, it's not like he's going to have clean pockets to stand in all day. That's not what we're saying at all. But we're saying the less than 2 seconds you're sacked before you have a chance to even look up at the field, that kind of stuff is going away, and hopefully it continues to go that direction. So on the note of the offensive line playing well, I think we should hit our surging performer, brought to you by Chris Gates and his online fitness training camp. My surging performer this week, Justin, is JC Latham. JC Latham, if we go back a little bit to our bold predictions from the beginning of the season, I predicted that JC Latham would make an all-rookie team at left tackle. Well, the 33rd team just recently released their top rookies on offense at every position, and JC Latham was named the first team left tackle for this mid-season all-rookie team that the 33rd team put out. Shout out to our buddy James Foster, who actually wrote that article. Biased? He's a Titans fan. A little biased? I don't know. We'll just let that slide. But JC Latham has been playing really well lately. He's a big part of the reason that this Titans offensive line has started to come together. And he's the surging performer of the week for me, and he's someone I'll be looking to this week to continue playing at a high level against, again, what is not a very good Patriots pass rush.
Well, I love that choice. I think that's the right choice. Just to be different, I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley as my surging performer. 10 catches last week against the Lions. I think 143 receiving yards. It was a career high amount of catches for him. Now, I'm going to be watching him closely because if Will Levis is coming back into the lineup here, and we think he is, he struggled with chemistry-wise with Calvin Ridley early on. We saw what Rudolph did, peppering Ridley with targets often and early. Will Levis is going to have to come in and do the same thing now, especially since DeAndre Hopkins is no longer in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. So that's our surging performer, brought to you by Chris Gates Fitness and his online fitness training camp. Since you listen to Music City Audible, you're obviously a big football fan, especially if you're still listening. I mean, you must just be the biggest football fan because no one cares about the Titans anymore. In fact, they were forked recently on Heed the Call, and if you don't know what that means, you should go listen to Heed the Call. But many years ago on Around the NFL, the guys came up with this slang term called forked, which is when you stick a fork in them, their season is over. They're done. It's a cooking analogy, yes. So the Titans have been forked. So that means their season is over as far as that podcast is concerned. And if you're still tuning in under those circumstances, you're obviously a big football fan. Chris Gates is also a big football fan, and he has designed a monthly fitness program designed specifically for people like us. And it comes with so much. With your membership, you get so many things, including this online support community, personalized workout plans. There are contests and competitions where Chris gives stuff away, like workout equipment, supplements, things like of that nature. So you should all check out Training Camp with Chris Gates Fitness. If you check it out today, sign up right now. You can get your first month for just $10. That is an 80% discount off the regular monthly price. So head over to chrisgatesfitness.com/tradingcamp or hit the link in this podcast description to sign up and use the code AUDIBLE again to get 80% off your first month. All right, Justin, let's move on to the big question surrounding this game. Should the Titans win or lose? Now, obviously, if you're in the building, every single person who's in the building says the Titans need to win this game. Brian Callahan says, I need to prove to myself, to Rand Carthon, to Amy Adams-Strunk, to this locker room that my way can work because it hasn't worked yet. Everyone in that front office and in that building needs a win, including Colt Anderson, who is potentially coaching for his job for the rest of this season. Denard Wilson has been good. Titans still allowing the fewest yards of any team on defense, but a big caveat there last week, they didn't have to defend the field. The Lions were, maximum 30 yards possible to gain on each drive after the way they returned the ball and turned over the Titans. So there's a lot of people in that building that want to win. Let's just caveat it with that. At the same time, Rand Carthon was there when San Francisco was bad, and they got high draft picks like Nick Bosa, Trey Lance, but yes, high picks that helped reshape that roster and build up that team. Brian Callahan was in Cincinnati when they did the same thing. They got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, in back-to-back years, near the top of the draft. These guys who are running the team have seen how valuable it can be to stink for a year or two and get high draft pick and add blue chip talent and turn your entire roster around. Bengals went to the Super Bowl. 49ers went to the Super Bowl not long after being one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league. So can the Titans learn from that with these guys who were there? Will they even consider it? Or are they going to be coaching their asses off and running this team their asses off to win this game against one of the other worst teams in the league? Titans. If the Titans are a bottom 2 team, the Patriots are a bottom 3 or 4 team in this league right now. So I think personally in the long run, it's obviously better if the Titans just lose out. Is that good for the culture? Is that good for the locker room, for all the players who are playing for their careers? And how do you think Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon value winning versus losing at this point in the season?
Well, 1-16 is no good for them, right? I'll put it that way. Like when you say lose out, like 1-16 might be the one scenario where they consider firing both of them. Like they're not hoping for 1-16. That is so unbelievably bad. I don't know that you could run that back, right? You might lose that locker room at 1-16. So the losing out thing's a bit much. I will say, of course, for the draft order, Titans are currently number 2. Patriots are currently number 3. So this is a very, partially decisive game for what that draft order is going to end up looking like, especially when tiebreakers get involved at the end of the year. I'm torn on this. I'm not going to pretend like I'm actively rooting for a win, and because the season, as we said, is over. I don't think they're not going to the playoffs. Like, I'm not out there rooting my ass off as a fan. I think there's no doubt the coaches want to win. I think Brian Callahan handled that question well the other day. He admitted, I understand why fans want to tank, but that's not how we operate. We got guys coaching, playing for their jobs. We're not even thinking about that. It's probably better in the long run if they lose this game. I'm not going to be there actively rooting for a loss. If they win, it's their second win of the season. They're still very close to the top of the NFL draft order, right? Like, it's not like they're plummeting down to 14 or 15 overall, right? They'd probably be going from 2 to like 4 or 5 if they win this game. But ultimately, I do think it's in their best interest to lose these games. They're not going to admit that. They're not going to operate like that. But the earlier the pick, and again, this quarterback class not very good. We can get into all that. Maybe that lessens the need to lose, if you will. But I'm torn in the middle here because 1-16 is very, very bad. That might be clean house territory. But on the other side of it, the earlier the pick, the better. Why not, right?
And the catch-22 of that scenario is that this is the last truly winnable game on the schedule. Yes, anything can happen any given Sunday. They could have a turnover fest that leads to a win. They could just have a surprise performance and they beat a team that they're supposed to lose to. All those things are obviously possible. But in terms of like strength of schedule, this is by far their easiest game left. So if they do lose this one, the odds that they go 1-16 skyrocket, in my opinion. If they win this game, they show some stuff. Will Levis takes advantage of this last opportunity to try to, earn a roster spot in 2025, then things will be different, and we'll see how it goes. So with that said, I think that's a perfect segue into I'll Drink to That, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, which is that I'm drinking to the chance to secure a high draft pick. And I'm totally with you on the side of like, if they go 1-16, do they clean house? I kind of feel like it's definitely possible, but I kind of feel like they might not, just because Amy Adams-Strunk has just fired a coach, brought in someone else. There are obviously cash flow issues with that. I'm not calling her broke, but there are cash flow issues with that. You got to keep paying Brian Callahan and his staff and bring in a whole new staff and pay them too. And you're probably
still paying Mike Vrabel too.
Still paying Mike Vrabel. Exactly my point. So, would Amy Adams-Strunk make that quick move? Now, if things are just absolutely like continue to lose 52-14 type of numbers, it's a different story. If they continue to lose close games like they did early in the year, then we could maybe see them stick around. But at the end of the day, I think the opportunity to secure a high draft pick, because if this team does go 1-16, are you confident that Brian Callahan is going to make the right pick for the next franchise quarterback and get him playing at a high level and continue to lead this team to a place where they can go? Because if you end up in a situation where you fire Brian Callahan 2 years into his tenure or 3 years into his tenure, then you've wasted 1 or 2 more years of whatever the cheap contracts that you currently have, like JC Latham, Peter Skoronski, and players that you may acquire in this upcoming draft. Like, you're wasting time to be competitive if you do hold on to a coach that you're ultimately going to fire in a year or two anyway. So if they do go 1-16 and clean house, like, at least you bring in a new regime that has a chance to mold the new roster the way they want to with high draft capital, as opposed to continue letting these guys that you maybe aren't sure about continue to mold the roster. So I think it goes both ways. Like, if you do end up 1-16, it's still positive, even if you have to clean house, because at least you hopefully get what you believe are the right people in here to rebuild the team.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that point, because I think if they go 1-16 and they don't clean house, then it says the leash is long, right? And it says, you can pick the next quarterback, and then we're going to give you time after you pick the next quarterback. So I think if they don't clean house and the leash is long and you're putting faith in Callahan and Carthon to get this right, then you've got to give them more than one more year to do it, especially if they're picking a quarterback.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So ultimately, I think better if they lose, but if they do win, at least maybe there's something to build on for next season. And obviously the end of this year, that doesn't matter anymore. But going into next year, if you have a little bit of momentum, show a little bit of growth, be a competitive team through the second half of the year, then it just gives you more confidence in the people running the show for next season. I'll drink to that. Brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, serving the community since 1985. Their knowledgeable staff is proud to help you with large parties, themed events, or finding something unique for a special occasion. From birthday parties to milestone celebrations to everyday moments, Sinkers can help with the right drink for every occasion. If you head to the sinkersbeverages.com website or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In Crowd. In Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. All right, Justin, it is time to make our predictions for this game. Here's the one thing I said, I'm kind of teased at the top that we might stop doing like true game previews as the season progresses, but we will not stop doing predictions because we're in a dead heat competition here, Justin. And by dead heat, I mean you're kind of blowing me out, but there's a lot of time left for me to make up. And last week, I did make up a little bit of ground. You are now 5-2 after predicting a 27-10 Lions win. You predicted a Lions blowout, so credit to you. But I had Lions 37, Titans 13. I almost nailed the Titans score, 1 point off, and I was much closer to the actual Lions score than you. So you are now 5-2. I am now 2-5. I may not be doing well at the predictions this year, but I'm doing better than the Titans. What have you got for this week, Justin?
Well, I'm torn on this because I don't think we know for sure yet what quarterback's playing for the Patriots, right? Drake May's in concussion protocol.
I will say, yeah, we probably should have talked about this a little bit if this is a game preview. Drake May is trending towards playing, and I've talked about this a few times over the years on this podcast, but the way it works is if you're in the concussion protocol, you have to go through a limited practice that usually happens on Wednesday. Then you have to go see an independent neurologist. Then you have to go through a full practice that usually happens on Thursday. Then you have to see that independent neurologist again. If he clears you after that full practice, you're good to go. You're good to return to play. Drake May, as far as we know, practiced in a limited capacity on Wednesday, presumably saw the neurologist on Thursday morning, is likely going to go through that full practice on Thursday. And if that all goes well, he presumably will be cleared to play. Now, obviously, a lot is still up in the air for what happens on Thursday, but the first step happened. Usually, when guys miss 2 straight weeks with a concussion, they don't practice at all in that first week back. And he practiced on Wednesday. So I would expect Drake May to play. Obviously, that can change, but I do expect him to be back in the lineup this week.
Well, I'm glad you had that info because I didn't have it, and I was just assuming he wasn't going to play. It feels like when guys are in concussion protocol, it always takes a week. But it's weird to say this because I don't know the Patriots expected this year, but Drake May, from what I've observed, gives them a better chance to win football games than Jacoby Brissett was earlier in the year. Drake May's playing pretty good ball. If he starts for the Patriots, I think they win. I mean, I hate to say it, but they beat the Jets, last week with Drake May. I shouldn't say the Jets in that tone because the Jets suck. But the Titans lost to the Jets, right? The Patriots didn't lose to the Jets. Patriots have been more competitive in recent weeks than the Titans have been, and Drake May's playing good ball. So if Drake May plays this game, I will go Patriots 20, Titans 14.
Wow, high scoring. I will say about the Patriots' ability to beat the Jets last week, there have been 751 instances in NFL history where a team scored 20-plus points, didn't turn it over, and allowed fewer than 250 yards. In those 751 instances where a team did that, they won the game 750 times. The only team that has ever lost while scoring more than 20 points, not turning the ball over, and allowing fewer than 250 yards is the Jets last week. The only time in NFL history. So the Patriots beat the Jets, yes, but they did not outplay the Jets. Greg Zuerlein missed an extra point and a field goal that if he had made those, the Patriots would have won that game, most likely. Things would have changed down the stretch, but most likely would have won that game. Can't take away a win. A win is a win in the National Football League. Every win's hard to come by. But it's not like they went out there and just beat the Jets soundly. Like it was the most unique circumstance win in NFL history.
It's also a pretty unique circumstance is going out there and losing 52-14. They didn't do that.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that. They didn't allow more return yards than offensive yards. That is very true. So So yeah, I think this game will be competitive and will be close. And I teased your prediction for being high scoring, 20-14. The reason for that is these are two of the bottom 5 scoring offenses in the league in terms of average points per game. They are the 2 teams allowing the most QB pressure in the league. If you look at offense EPA per play generated, they are both bottom 5. If you look at yards per game in offense, they are both bottom 3. These are 2 bad offensive teams. They do not move the ball. They do not score the ball. So I'm going to go Patriots 13, Titans 10. I think it's extremely low scoring and boring, to be frank. And I am predicting a Titans loss because that's what my heart wants. Are you predicting a Titans loss because it's what your heart wants or because it's what you think will happen?
Drake May plays, based on the Patriots being more competitive lately, it's what I actually think will happen.
All right, so we both have the Patriots beating the Titans, thus giving the Titans a firm grasp on the number 2 overall pick, with still plenty of games left, but a pretty firm grasp at this point in the season, and a chance for the number 1 pick if the Panthers can pull off one upset down the stretch here. Just one. Just win a game, Panthers. We'll be rooting for the Panthers for the rest of the season. We're also rooting for the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl, so the DeAndre Hopkins pick turns from a 5th to a 4th. Those are things to watch this weekend in the National Football League. And Justin, I think just to let the audience know as we wrap up here, going forward, not this week, but going forward, I think you and I are going to start highlighting some college prospects that Titans fans can turn on their TVs on Saturdays now while it's still college football season, as opposed to waiting till March and April and then catching up on all these prospects. We're going to start giving you some names to maybe keep an eye on as the college football season progresses. We're not going to do that this week, but that seems like a fun way to keep the interest here as the season dwindles down into meaningless nonsense. All right, any final thoughts on this game before we say goodbye?
No, that's all. I'm really curious to see what happens Sunday. Like we've said, I think at the end of the year, we'll look back at this game and probably find out that it was pretty decisive to the eventual draft order. So it's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely it is. All right, that'll do it for this one. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you are watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe to the Music City Audible. Give this video a thumbs up, turn on alerts so you get a notification every time we drop a new video, and comment below. Are you rooting for the Titans to win? Do you think they have any chance to win? Do you know how bad the Patriots are if you think the Titans don't have a chance to win? Like, this is a bad team also. Both these teams are very bad, but it's not like the Lions. It's not like the Bills. Like, this is a bad team the Titans get to face this week, so who knows? Maybe we'll see something that encourages us going forward for the rest of the season. All right, we'll be back on Sunday, Justin? We'll be back on Sunday? I'm down for Sunday if you are.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we'll be back on Sunday to recap this game, or maybe just talk big picture about things that we see, evaluate Will Levis's performance, assuming he plays, and things of that nature. So tune in on Sunday. Until then, y'all stay safe out there, and
Titan down.
A Broadway sports media production.